Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Style by C. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is the first time of seeing me, my name is Nancy. Okay, yeah, on today's tutorial I'll be talking on how to make this beautiful piece smell. So do subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell and also share. Is I'm going to draw a basic body first. I'm going to be drafting a basic body, and the full length I'm working with is 40 inches. Okay, 41 inches, sorry. So now is two steps. We have the upper part and the one that is going to be having a pleat. Okay, so I'm going to be minusing 10 inches from my 41 inches, and I'll be having 31 inches. Then I'll be adding 2 inches sewing allowance. All right, so from here to here is 33 inches. That's what I'll be having. I'll mark my shoulder line, which is here. Then I will start my shoulder measurements, 8 inches. So this is my start point, which is my shoulder. Then 1 inch down, which is the shoulder slope. Let me adjust my camera. This is my shoulder slope. Then I'm marking 3 inches for my neck width. Then I'll be connecting this to this way. Alright. Then from here I'm going to be marking my 8 inches. This is for my armhole measurement. I'm going to mark a line across. I'm going to make a rule across. Then here now I'll be marking my bust measurement, which is 8.75 inches. That's quarter of your bust measurements, your round bust measurements. Then also mark my shoulder measurements here. Then from here to here I'm going to divide it by 2 to get my armhole curve. Then place my tape back at the center, coming by half an inch to create the curve. So just watch carefully what I'm doing. So this is what I have. Alright. Then I'm placing my tape back to my shoulder line or my start point line, and I'll be marking 16 inches. This is my waistline at 16. Then at 24, which is my hip line. Then I'm going to make a rule across. Alright. So now I'll be inserting my measurements to them. So my waist measurement is 29 inches, which is 7.25 inches. My hip measurement is 37 inches, which is 9.25. Okay, so this is what I have. Then the next thing I'll be doing is to be adding extra 2 inches, or you can decide to use 1.5 inch seam allowance. So that's what I'm adding here. Then I'm going to connect them together. Alright, then coming to the hemline, I'm going to be removing 1 inch from my hip allowance, from my hip measurements. Like my hip measurement is 9.5 inches, so 9.25 inches. So here I'll be marking 8.25 inches plus my seam allowance. Okay. So this is our normal basic body. So now I'm using this to cut out my back measurement. I'm using it to cut out my back. So the next thing I want to talk on is the neck. For my back neck, I'm working with 2 inches. The depth of my back neck is going to be 2 inches. and the depth of the front neck you can decide to work with. It depends on how deep you want it to be. So I'll be working with 6 inches deep. Then I'm going to connect it. Remember, there is room for alterations. You can decide to alter it later. The choice is totally on you. So this is what we have. We'll go ahead and cut this out on our material or on our fabrics. So this is my back piece now. I've used the front to cut out my back piece. Another thing I made sure I did was I added some zip allowance. I made provision for my zip allowance. I added 1.5 inches for zip allowance. So now the next thing I'm going to be doing is we are going to be making our slant on this dress. Alright, that's the next thing we're going to do now. Pattern paper now. I went ahead to open it up. Alright, so now I'm going to be marking 5 inches starting from this point. This is my bottom or the base of my gown, so I'll be marking 5 inches upwards. So this is my 5 inches, and I'm going to connect it to this point that is there. If you think it's a little bit too small, you can decide to maybe raise it up a little. You can decide to use 6 inches. So I'm going to be connecting it to this point here. And I think it's too down, so I raise it up a little. I think 6 inches. I work to 6 inches to get my desired slant. So from the bottom you work with 6 inches, like I have here. I have 6 inches. All right, then you now cut it down to make your slant. Then once you're placing it this way, so this is what I have now. So we are done with this. I'll go ahead and use this to, I'll place it on my material and draft it out. The next thing we'll be cutting out is the pleats. So the next thing I'm going to be cutting is the sleeve. Alright, so my sleeve is 12 inches long. The length of my sleeve is 12 inches. I'm going to mark it here. Then I'm going to be marking 4 inches for my calf line. If you want to learn how to make a basic sleeve proper, I have a video up on the channel on how to draft a basic sleeve. Alright, so I don't know if you'll be able to grab what I'm doing very well here. So now I'm going to connect it this way. Then I'm going to be marking my round sleeve here. Then I'll connect the two of them together. Then I'll cut it out. Then use it and cut out another pair. So the next thing I went ahead to do was to cut out facing for my dress, for my neck areas. Alright, so this is for my back and this is for my front. Then another thing I cut was, this is my pleats. Alright, you make it as long as possible. So my material is not that lengthy, so I'm going to be joining the pieces together. Then the length, like the boldness, is 12 inches. Remember, I'm going to still hem it. Okay, my seam allowance, that's what I added 2 inches. You can decide to add 1 inch. So this is what I have. The next thing will now be on the sewing part of this. So for my front piece, I went ahead to join the facing together, then iron it down. To make the two of them stick together, I used a hemming gum in between to make it slap very well. Alright, so this is my front. I've joined the facing. The same thing with my back pieces. Also join the facing to the front, to the neck areas. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be marking my dart line. These I've marked already. So from 1 inch below my chest line, okay, then from the shoulder 1 inch below my chest line to 21 inches, that's my back. So after doing it, this is what it will look like. This is what you'll be having. So this is what I have. This is what the front piece looks like. So this is my dart. So I will do the same thing for my front. I also go ahead and mark my dart line for my front. You can decide not to put a dart on your front. You can decide to put a dart on it. So for me now, I'm not putting any darts on this front, only the back I'm putting a dart to. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is, since I've run a stitch on my darts already, I'll be joining the two necks together, two shoulders together. I'll join the two shoulders together. Okay, then I'll show you what next. Joining the shoulders together, the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attaching my sleeve to this arm area, to my armhole area. Okay, so this is my shoulder, then this is my sleeve. All right, I went ahead and folded the edge of my sleeve. This is what I did, I folded it. Then the next thing I'm going to be doing is shoulder to shoulder. So this is my sleeve and this is my shoulder. I'll go ahead and run a stitch on the arm. Okay, that's what I'll do next. All right, so stay tuned. Joining my shoulders together and attaching my sleeve, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark my shape line. All right, that's inserting my round bust, my round waist, and my round hip measurements. I think the chalk is faint, it's not clear. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to run a stitch on it. Okay, so now for my pleats, this is the second part of the gown, the down part of the gown. So I went ahead and folded the edge. All right, I've hemmed the end. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'll be working with my needle and thread. I'll be dropping a link on how to create gathers. So this is my needle, this is my thread. I'll be using it to make gathers. You can decide to maybe make it bold, you can decide to picking it small. It all depends on you. So this is what I'm going to do now, after which I'll now attach it to my gown proper. So let's go. So now I'm done with the gathers. This is what it looks like. So it's small. What I'm going to do is just to stretch it so it will be able to go through my dress. So this is my gown, this is the down part of my gown. All right, so now this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll place this here. So I'll be placing it here. Then I'm going to run a stitch on it down to the other parts of the back. Okay, so I'll go ahead and use the sewing machine to do that, then continue. So the next thing I'm going to do is, after joining it, okay, I'm going to be marking where my zip is going to stop. Remember, we're going to be having a zip at the back. So now I'm going to use my tape, or it depends on the zip you want. You can still decide to work with the big invisible head. The choice is totally yours. So I placed my zip, this is my zip, I placed it on the back of my dress this way. So at this point, I'm going to be marking 1 inch before the end of where my zip stops. So this is what I have. So I'll go ahead and run a stitch on it to close it up. Then after which I'll attach my zip